What is going on, everybody? ZyoniK here, and in today's video we are diving into the Ultra League with Annihilape, the brand new fighting ghost type Pokemon that is going to be a part of the meta. It is that strong out of the gate with counter, Shadow Ball, Ice Punch, Foul Play, Close Combat, pick your booms. This Pokemon is a lot of fun. Now, I am doing Ultra League because I'm still trying to work on getting a good Mankey for the Great League, but this team overall was pretty fun to use and pretty strong. Cresselia, Annihilape, and Poliwrath. So, hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Let me know what teams you guys are using with Annihilape. Let's go ahead and get right into it. Alright, getting into the first battle, we have a shiny Guzzlord. Sorry, but this shiny's really ugly. I'm just going to be completely honest. Pretty decent matchup for us. We do need to watch out for Crunch, and they actually decide to swap out into Mewtwo here. Armored Mewtwo. Now we do have Moonblast for some nice neutral damage, and hopefully this is the only counter to our backline, because obviously we're going to be sitting good if it is. Now I wouldn't be surprised if there is something like a Talonflame or a Charizard in the back to just help out with the weakness that Guzzlord might have to fighting and Fairy and Ice. So we're likely, that could be a possibility, so I'm just taking that into account as we play these battles. And thankfully we do resist not all the moves. It does have access to Rock Slide, but most of them are running with Armored Mewtwo's, are running with Psy Strike and Dynamic Punch. So we can easily survive these charge moves. And Armored Mewtwo, a fun Pokemon to use. I hope it comes back to raids soon because it was only available, I believe, once a long time ago. And Cresselia is actually going to make quick work of it here. Not quick work, it was actually a long mid-game battle. Grass not able to take it out. Now, they do have a fire, but it's going to be Skeledirge instead of Talonflame or Charizard. So I was correct in terms of one of the typings, that fire type, but the ghost typing as well makes sense. We're going to go ahead and let the disarming voice go through, as it's not going to KO us. We want to put a lot of pressure here on this Skeledirge with Scald, as it will do super effective damage. We get the first shield of this game. Now Poliwrath should be able to get a few Scalds off before we go down to any fast moves, as we are resisting them. And we're going to make sure we try to time our Scalds as best as possible so that they don't sneak through and incinerate fast move. That would be really bad. But now we got an attack drop as well. They decide to swap out into Guzzlord, and I think they swapped out a bit too quick because I am able to get to this Icy Wind in time, which is going to be some much needed super effective damage and attack debuff, right? Now I decided to swap into Cresselia right here to force the energy from my opponent as they decide to throw the Crunch right away. I didn't want them to load up and farm down. So now we can come in with Annihilape. The energy on Guzzlord is basically cleared. Crunch here only does neutral. We are fighting Ghost, so it's not going to be able to KO us, and we should be able to counter down. And the first battle with Annihilape is going to end in a boom. You'll love to see it. A Shadow Ball here is going to be connecting to Skeledirge. Boom! One shot to Skeledirge, and that is going to be a good game. Very well played. Alright, moving to the next one. Lanturn on the lead. So pretty good lead right here for us, as we do have the Grass Knot, and they decide to swap out into Giratina Altered, which we also have a good answer for with Moonblast. Cresselia, probably one of the strongest Pokemon, most consistent Pokemon in the Ultra League, and it's gaining a lot of popularity and strength in the Great League as well, so be on the lookout for that. But Ultra League, it's always been just solid. It just has to really watch out for Steel-type Pokemon because of its moveset. It's all resisted damage to them. That's why stuff like Registeel and Alolan Sandslash do so well in a Cresselia meta, in the Ultra League meta. Now, we come in with Poliwrath here, as we got a shield with that Moonblast, and Icy Winds can still do super effective damage and apply the attack debuff. We won't necessarily get Switch here. I don't really want to give up shields. What I want to do is come back in and just load up on energy with Cresselia, because Annihilape can go toe-to-toe with that Lanturn in the 2-to-1 shield advantage. So that is okay with me. If I get another shield here from Giratina Altered, so be it. It would be awesome to get the 2-to-0s for Annihilape, but odds are they try to take us down here with the charge move. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and let this go. They were able to survive the Icy Wind, unfortunately, as Dragon Claw will KO. Now, I could come in with Annihilape and load up on energy, but I think the safer play here is to come in with Cresselia and load up, as the Icy Winds aren't going to do that much, and the Psycho Cuts here is going to get us quite a bit of energy. We don't know what they have in the back, but obviously Lanturn is going to be weak to the Grass Knot, so we want to bank these charge moves. They do go for double, which is fine. Cresselia is extremely tanky, plus the Icy Wind debuffs there on the Giratina Altered allows it to keep about 50% of its health. Now, I go for a Grass Knot as I saw the Lanturn come in, but they did a hot swap into Cobalion, and that unfortunately is going to seal their fate. Welcome, Annihilape, to the Cobalion Fighter Steel, and that is going to be a good game, very well played. All right, moving to the next one, Empoleon on the lead. So we're going to go into the Poliwrath right away. We do draw out a fairy here, that being the Clefable, so I'm not going to be surprised if there's two fairies. An Empoleon double Charmer team could be viable here in the Ultra League. So my hope is that I can get to Icy Wind in time, but unfortunately I don't. So might have misplayed that mid game. I could have maybe gotten 2 Icy Winds off, which I think would have been a lot better here for Cresselia. In terms of, obviously, we would have done more damage, so we could have farmed down, and secondly, we wouldn't take as much from the Meteor Mash, as they're going to be doing a decent chip damage, and the charms here are going to be adding up. Now, I go for Grass Knot right away. I do not want this Clefable to be able to do any more fast move damage to me, and we're going to go ahead and counter swap as the Empoleon does come in. I don't know what the final Pokemon is, but obviously they're kind of fearful of my Annihilape, which means I'm hopeful it's going to be a positive matchup as we go ahead and shield the Hydro Cannon. It could be a Blizzard on Empoleon, by the way. If you guys are wondering why didn't they go for Drill Peck Empoleon with Blizzard in the... it's going to be a Gavantula here, sorry. Empoleons with Blizzard are viable in the Ultra League because of how many dragons are around, right? So we're just going to go ahead and go for the Ice Punches here. Going to do as much chip damage as possible to this Gavantula. Now, unfortunately, the Gavantula is loading up on energy, and we need to get shields desperately. So my hope is that I can get to a 3rd Ice Punch in time, but I counter swap into Cresselia because I don't want to get farmed down, because how I lose this game is the Gavantula gets to 3 charge moves. Now, 1 lunge is not enough to KO, so we're going to go ahead and go for the Moonblast here. What they really need is like an extra fast move or 2 plus the lunge damage. As you guys will see, we almost take out the Gavantula there. They do get the lunge in time, but thankfully Cresselia is so tanky that we are able to survive, and that is going to be a good game, very well played. All right, moving to the next one, Poliwrath on the lead. So really positive lead for us. They're deciding to stay in as well, which obviously bodes well for a positive lead matchup. But obviously gotta be very cautious about what they could have in the back, because just because we win this lead doesn't mean our backline beats their backline automatically. So we'll have to see what's going to be back there as they go ahead and go for Scald, and we're just going to go for Grass Knot right away. I just want to get this Poliwrath out of the game, get some pressure down if we can, maybe get a shield here, but they let it go. Boom, down it goes, and in comes a Charizard. I'm like, oh boy, here we go. And it's an Armored Mewtwo as well. So Charizard and Armored Mewtwo, this is going to be tough to deal with for my team, because unfortunately, if they give all the shields to Charizard, the fast move pressure it is going to apply to my Annihilape is going to be bad. So we got to try to see if we can wiggle something out. Boom, down we go. Now we're going to see if we can utilize the Cresselia to get this Armored Mewtwo low, and then maybe Annihilape can go toe-to-toe with the Charizard, but unfortunately, I think we're going to be facing off against the inevitable Wing Attack Dragon Claw spam. There's no need for them to be trying to go for Blast Burns. This is going to be a 2-shield scenario in the end game, a fighter against a flyer. And Annihilape could take it down. They counter swap into Charizard, and rightfully so. I think they predicted me possibly running Annihilape based on my team composition so far, but this is going to be a tough one. I let the Dragon Claw go through. And my hope was that Annihilape could potentially survive. Plus, I wanted to see how much damage it was going to do. But I'm not going to be able to really outpace them to the charge move. So I'm going to let this go to see if maybe I survive this, but unfortunately I don't. I was hoping to really get myself an advantage there in some way. The reason being, if I survive that Dragon Claw, then I get the Ice Punch for free. That either gets the chip damage needed or that gets the shield. So lesson learned there, really you can't, it's too much damage coming out with the wing attack adding up. And then obviously Cresselia here is going to be doing nothing but resisted damage, so I'm going to be forced to shield anyways. The game's not over yet, but it's not looking good. Let's just say that. Moonblast now going to be coming out. Does resisted damage actually a good chunk if it lands, as you guys can see. And then they decide to throw the next Dragon Claw here, so I'm going to go ahead and give up my final shield, fight the good fight. Let's see what happens. They swap into Armored Mewtwo. I go for the Grass Knot now, and now it's going to be a race. If they decide to let this go, it's going to be a race between Charizard and Cresselia, and as you guys can see, we don't get there in time with the fast move down, so that is going to be a good game. So a very close one, but obviously they had a plan. They saw the Poliwrath, the bad lead, but they had a hard counter backline, so good game. All right, moving to the next one. We have a shiny Escavalier on the lead, so we're going to go ahead and come in with that Poliwrath. We do draw out a Togekiss, which is unfortunate for a fighter to fairy flying matchup, but it's actually good in the sense that we have Icy Wind, and Icy Wind does super effective damage, lowers that attack, which allows Poliwrath here to get to a second Icy Wind in time before going down to fast moves. This is going to be getting shield pressure now on the Togekiss, which is going to allow our Annihilape to potentially sweep this game. Once again, it could be a Steel double fairy, but in this case, this Steel is extremely weak to fire, so odds are it's not going to be another fairy. It could be maybe a Tapu Fini, as they decide to go for Ancient Powers here. Now, I'm going to go ahead and overload on energy. I'm totally fine with a Togekiss hitting me with charge moves, whether it's Flamethrower, Aerial Ace, Ancient Power, whatever it is, we're going to go ahead and let it go. Make sure we overload so we have plenty of energy on the back end here versus the Escavalier. I won't have a charge move ready to go, but I will definitely need this energy in the end game as we go ahead and swap now into Annihilape to get ahead. Now, this was a bit quick, and I'm like, wait, was that a drill run? So I'm just going to shield regardless, but it was an Acid Spray. I could have easily let that go. And the final Pokemon is actually going to be Empoleon. So Annihilape now in a really good position. I'm going to go ahead and go for Ice Punch for the shield bait here. If they decide to no shield, it's obviously not going to do that much damage. But now what I can do is actually farm them down with counter because of the chip damage added onto there. So we should be able to farm down in time, and then now we can go ahead and go for Shadow Ball against the Escavalier, force that final shield, and with the counter damage that we're doing as well, a Moonblast should be enough, especially since we get to this Ice Punch in time. Now, unfortunately, wasn't able to get to the Shadow Ball there. That would have been really nice, but Ice Punch is going to do enough chip damage where we can go for Moonblast here with Cresselia to close this game out. If they have Mega Horns, so be it, but odds are they don't, as it's going to be Acid Spray. Most of the time we see Drill Run there on the Escavalier, or Drill Run and Mega Horn, usually not Mega Horn and Acid Spray, so good game. Alright, moving into the next one, Cresselia versus Giratina Altered on the lead. You know, a decent Pokemon to be facing off against. Dragon Breath is definitely more favorable than the Shadow Claw damage, as we can go ahead and go for Moonblast here. And what's nice is these two Titans of the Ultra League are always facing off against each other, always doing super effective damage, and we don't really need to worry about the Shadow Sneaks too much. Obviously, Shadow Force is a force to be reckoned with, but Shadow Sneak doesn't do that much damage. We can happily stay in this fight. They decide to swap out into Talonflame, so I have to come in with Poliwrath. This is really my only answer to a Talonflame. We're going to have to see if we can get to 2 Scalds, and we're going to let the first one go through. I was hoping that was going to be a Flame Charge. Unfortunately, it wasn't, so we will go for Scald here. And sadly on CMP Taya, I thought I was 1 turn ahead of that, but unfortunately I wasn't. Now they go for Flame Charge, but Poliwrath is tanky enough, bulky enough here in the Ultra League where it should be able to survive but they let it go. Boom! Down it goes. And in comes a Tapu Fini. So we're going to go ahead and go for Icy Wind here. I think it's going to be more favorable to get the guaranteed debuff rather than the Scald, a little bit extra resisted damage. Now I come in right away with Cresselia and go for the Grass Knot here, trying to get the shield from the Tapu Fini, but they decide to let it go. They come in with Giratina Altered, and I'm going to come in with the Annihilape to see what it can do. Now, in hindsight, maybe I stay in. I also let the Shadow Sneak go through. Maybe I stay in with the Cresselia. Just looking at the bulk here, I think there was a lack of judgment on my end. Plus, I go for Ice Punch, and they're just going to no-shield it. I think they know their win con is no-shielding, so could have gotten away with a free Shadow Ball right there. So 2 misplays on my end based on the choices that I made. But obviously, when you have a Talonflame swap in with this team, especially with having technically three counters to my backline in terms of double fighter, so Annihilape and Poliwrath versus a Giratina Altered, Talonflame, and Tapu Fini team, it's going to be very tough to overcome. So Giratina Altered and Tapu Fini are going to be able to take it here. I might have had a play if I stayed in with Cresselia versus the Giratina Altered and went for Moonblast, and then we could have maybe swept this game with a double Shadow Ball. But good game to my opponent. Alright, moving to the next one. Cresselia versus Cresselia on the lead. This is always going to be a long-winded fight, as both Pokemon don't do that much damage to each other, and it gets even worse if we get the attack debuff. Now, long time ago, in a season far, far away, Moonblast used to proc more often. It was a higher percent chance, and if you guys remember those days, that was just whichever Cresselia got the debuff, just flat out won. Like, you won the game most likely, and you definitely won the mirror match if you got the debuff. Now, what you had to do is if your opponent got the debuff on you, you had to get the debuff on them with your Moonblast on CMP tie. Otherwise, you're losing, right? And same thing goes for this matchup, but it's a lot lower chance. I believe it's 15% chance to land, whereas before, I believe, if memory serves me correct, it was like 30 to 50%. Somewhere in there, it might have been 30. So they definitely nerfed it a long time ago, because it was just, there were stalemates and it was not fun. But we're almost at the end of this fight as Moonblast, and looking at the IVs as well, based on the health that they have remaining, I think I win this one. Just because I'm in the yellow, they're in the red. So we do survive the Moonblast. We go ahead and go for our own. And if they survive, I'm going to swap into Poliwrath right away, because I just need energy on it anyway. So I'm going to swap right away. I will counter it down, so we get 2 counters in there worth of energy. And then let's see what they bring in. They bring in a Shadow Ampharos. So this isn't the worst thing ever, as we can apply the attack debuff with Icy Wind and do neutral damage. But my hope is that Annihilape can sweep this game. Now, we're going to, we're gonna see if we can get to another Icy Wind in time as we let this go through. It is going to be Thunder Punch, and we do survive, so this allows us to get to the second Icy Wind. And this is some much needed chip damage that we are going to be doing here, and applying a second debuff. So now I'm going to come in with Annihilape. I think I'm going to shield right away. Granted, I could probably have just let this go, just thinking about it, double Icy Wind, looking back, and I could have easily let that go. But we have a huge advantage. Now they have Skeledirge come in, so now this is going to be a very interesting end game, as both Pokemon are going to be doing a lot of damage to each other. It's going to be a back and forth, and thankfully they don't have a Cresselia alive, but I do. So I'm going to go for 1 Shadow Ball here. The goal is to get to 2 Shadow Balls, right? That's how we do it. I lose if I go for a bait. They decide to shield. So now I'm going to look to swap, but I don't. And I'm like, what was I doing? No! The Disarming Voice is going to land, but Annihilape hangs on with 1 HP in a dream and started off this video with a boom. We are ending with a boom against the same Pokemon. Boom! See ya! Down goes the Skeledirge, and that is going to be a good game. Very well played. This team was pretty fun to use. Obviously, there is a challenge of a lot of people using triple hard counters to Annihilape, which is going to be tough to manage, but what's going to happen over time is Annihilape is going to be just a part of the normal meta that you see for Ultra League and Great League, maybe even Master League. And there won't be so many triple hard counters out there. It's just going to be a really dense hard counter city for like the next week because of its brand new release. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and like always, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.